and welcome to our webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rania Babu, and I will be your host for today. For privacy reasons, attendees will not be able to see each other. We will be recording today's session, and we'll send you the link to the recording as well as the presentation in follow-up emails. If questions, please type them in the Q&A bar, and we will try to address them during the Q&A session at the end. For today is making the business case for EV charging. Our guest speaker for today is Tom Moloughney. Tom is a passionate electric vehicle advocate and has been driving electric cars for the past 6 years and driven over 180,000 electric miles, most of which powered by renewable energy generated by his home solar electric system. Owns and manages a commercial strip mall in Montclair, New Jersey, where he installed a ChargePoint Level 2 station, so he's a customer as well, and a DC fast charger. That property was one of the first in New Jersey to offer public charging for electric vehicles, dating way back to 2009. Tom is currently director of content at EV Space, which is an informational website about electric vehicles. He is also a former board member of Plug-in America and president of Charging Ahead Consulting, a company he started in 2014, which offers consulting services to a variety of stakeholders in the electric vehicle industry. Welcome to our webinar, Tom.
Hi, Rania. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
This is the agenda for today. In the first session, we'll briefly cover some EV charging basics for those that are brand new to webinars and the EV space. We'll then look at how to make the business case for EV charging and how ChargePoint can help. We'll then offer his insights, recommendations, and also talk about his personal experiences with EV charging. We'll have a bit of a Q&A towards the end. Please type your questions in the Q&A bar on the side, as I mentioned. We'll try to answer the questions through the presentation and also address them at the end for everybody if time permits. ChargePoint is the largest and most open electric vehicle charging network in the world with more than 27,000 charging locations. We offer smart EV charging solutions that enable EV charging anywhere, be it at home, at work, around town, or even out of town. The growth predictions look very strong. According to some analysts, EV on the threshold of mass market adoption. They predict that when EVs reach the $30,000 price point and the 200-mile range, the market will move from early adopters to mainstream adoption. With automakers announcing new vehicles with increased ranges and lower prices, we're getting there really fast. Let's look at the different types of levels of charging. There are 3 broad levels of EV charging today: Level 1, Level 2, and DC fast charging. Level 1 and Level 2 are AC charging. So Level 1 charging uses the standard household 120-volt AC outlet to charge the electric vehicle. It offers 2 to 5 miles of range per hour, or what we call as RPH. So anywhere from 8 to 20 hours, depending on the car and the battery, to add 40 miles of range, which is a little bit more than the average miles driven in America. We do not recommend Level 1 charging. A lot of people may not be aware that Level 1 charging actually costs more and offers less value. It also poses a huge safety risk with open electric outlets and wires draping the ground. It can be a financial liability with unrestricted access to electricity. So building out the infrastructure to support Level 1 charging can cost 4 to 8 times more compared to building it for a Level 2 charging to support the same number of drivers. So it's not scalable. Level 2 charging uses either the household or commercial 208 to 240 volt power supply to charge the electric vehicle. It offers 10 to 30 miles of range per hour. So it takes 2 to 4 hours, depending on the car and the battery, to add 40 miles of range. This type of charging is offered by installing a level 2 charging station that has a cord with an SAE J1772 connector, which is a standard level 2 connector. The third type of e-charging is DC fast charging. This is sometimes called level 3 charging. DC fast charging requires a 208 or a 480 volt 3-phase AC power supply. The DC charger performs the AC to DC conversion and supplies DC power directly to the battery in the car. To 200 miles of range per hour, so it would take 15 to 45 minutes for an 80% charge, depending on the car. Moving over to networked versus non-network chargers, one need smart charging solutions. Smart station is not just a charging station, but a network-connected station that can announce itself to drivers on a mobile app, for example. Provide real-time availability status remotely so you don't have to physically go to the station to check status. They can be set up as free or paid station, so you can charge for usage. You get reimbursed for electricity. You can control who uses your stations, and you can get analytics on usage. You can track your sustainability metrics, revenues, and costs. This will allow you to measure your return on investment. You can't do any of these things with a non-networked charger. We'll jump right into the topic for the day, which is make business case for smart AV charging. Charging is good for your business, whether you're looking to offer workplace e-charging or for your employees, or an amenity for your customers, guests, tenants, and residents, or looking to electrify your fleet, or a combination of these things. It's a benefit that can help differentiate your company in a competitive market for top talent. It's a valuable amenity that can draw new customers to your business, have them stay longer at your location and spend more, and also to build loyalty and repeat business. It's a valuable amenity that differentiates your property to potential renters. It can attract residents and visitors to the local businesses in your city and town to boost sales tax revenues. And manage a fleet, it can help electrify your fleet and lower your total cost of ownership and maintenance costs. In the following slides, we'll use both industry data as well as data collected from our customers to illustrate some of these points. So the first point is that EV charging is a workplace benefit that offers a very high leverage compared to some other standard benefits like an on-site cafeteria or gym or even health insurance. We find leverage as the benefit that the employee gets per dollar spent by employer. For example, for $8 spent per employee to offer an on-site cafeteria, the employee enjoys a $2 benefit based on average costs to offer that benefit and cost of the benefit outside. Gym gives an employee a 2 to 2.5x benefit. Insurance gives a 1.2 to 2x benefit. E-charging actually gives your employees a 5x to 6x benefit for every dollar you spend. So the numbers based on gas prices prevailing today and savings realized by commuting in an EV. This makes it a relatively low-cost, high-return benefit for employers to offer their employees. EV charging is already offered as a benefit today by leading companies. Found that 1 in 4 of the Fortune best companies to work for in the last 5 years is a ChargePoint customer. So that's 25% of the top companies. Now compare that with the statistics for on-site cafeteria. According to a survey done by RM the Shrum, which is the Association for HR Managers, only 18% of the companies they surveyed offered an on-site criteria. Leading workplaces are already embracing EV charging as a benefit. We also found that 2 in 3 of the Glassdoor top companies for compensation and benefits voted by the employees is a ChargePoint customer. If you are a workplace, a good place to start would be to do an employee survey to assess your needs. We can work with you to design the survey, send the survey to your employees, and summarize the results for you. In most cases, we found that the survey unearthed some eye-opening findings. We can then help you build a business case to present to your management as well as your stakeholders from other departments. Here are the results from a survey that we did for a Fortune 500 company, which is a leading global consumer brand and a top 10 green brand. The survey was done with 141 employees at a single site. We found that 15% of their employees were already EV drivers. So it revealed that if EV charging was made available, the number of drivers would double in 3 months and almost quadruple in a year. A whopping 60% of the respondents indicated that they would likely switch to an electric vehicle if workplace charging was available. This helped quantify the existing as well as the potential demand for EV charging for the customer. Moving on to property owners and managers. If you own a commercial or a residential property, then the business is slightly different for you. You may be interested in building codes, occupancy rates, and lease renewals. I'm going to start with building codes. The variety of voluntary green building certification programs out there that you may all be familiar with. Most of them, like LEED, Energy Star, BOMA Best, and Green, support and credit use of EVs and installation of EV charging infrastructure. GRESB allows for portfolio-level sustainability reporting and supports EV charging as well. These programs track and measure the return on green buildings, and that seems to be going up. For instance, the 2015 GRESB report shows that 60% of the standard lease contracts in 2015 have sustainability-specific requirements, and that's up from 43% in 2004. Lease rates for the green buildings are higher. You can get more rental income from certified buildings. A building had, we found that it had $4.1 million higher income than the average 80,000 square foot buildings in LA. One of the most frequent questions we get from property managers and owners is about LEED. If you're interested in LEED, there are a variety of scenarios where you are be eligible for credits under the LEED system. For new construction, existing buildings, multifamily dwellings, and neighborhoods, points are awarded for allocating designated parking spaces for electric vehicles and for installing EVSEs in some of those spaces. Depending on your installation, you may be eligible for multiple LEED points. Please call us if you would like to help get more on credits for LEED. One thing to note here is that in order to get LEED points, your charging station should be at least a level 2 charger and with standardized connectors that is networked or what we call smart chargers. It would support time of use pricing and demand response. Now move on to retail, hospitality, and municipalities. What does smart EV charging do for retail and hospitality businesses and municipalities? Studies have found that EV drivers make 2 times the average national income, are highly educated, and are very green-minded. EV drivers choose their destinations based on the availability of charging stations from their network and loyal to the plug. So they make habitual stops at these places, which helps you build loyalty and repeat customers for businesses. Tom's going to cover some of these things during his presentation as well. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you some data that we collected from our cloud-based software from our customers that proves some of these points. This is the first example. This is data from a customer that is a top 3 discount retailer in the U.S. This data comes, again, from our cloud-based software and shows the zip codes of the drivers that charged at their stations. This is not a location on a freeway or any attractive tourist destination, but a regular store in a Tier 2 city. Typically, these type of stores, customers would just go to the store that's closest to their location. What I found was they got drivers from over 600 zip codes come out at their locations from all over the country and even from the other coast. There's, of course, huge concentrations on the West Coast and in Northern California where they're located, understandably so. This retailer has multiple locations with a wide coverage and has stores every few miles. This was the only location at that time that had charging stations. Drivers had the option of going to the nearest store location, which is usually the expected behavior, yet they chose to drive long distances to this location and charge there. So this indicates that EV drivers will go out of the way to visit locations that have EV chargers and spend time there to get charged. Here's data from another one of our customers. That's a little town in Massachusetts on the east side of the country that is not a major city like Boston or New York City. It's a town that was a pit stop for those driving between the major cities on the East Coast. So they would stop for a few minutes, fill gas, and just so they wanted to make this city into a destination town versus being a few minutes pit stop type of town. They installed charging stations across the town and found that they had drivers from across 100 zip codes, include few from the West Coast and the southern tip of the East Coast, as they drove into their towns to charge their cars and actually spent a few hours in the city as opposed to just a few minutes, and they're driving traffic to local businesses. Data from another customer that's a very popular theme park in Southern California had drivers from across the country using the stations. You can see huge concentrations from Northern California, which is 500 miles away, Phoenix and Las Vegas areas, which are even farther away, and even some very enthusiastic drivers from the East Coast. This indicates that EV drivers will come if you put charging stations. They will find you and visit you. And many of them would not have visited these locations if not for the charging stations. We also found is that across the board, drivers keep frequenting their favorite locations over and over again, indicating that they are loyal to the plug. To summarize all of this, here is a case study we did with the top 3 discount retailer I mentioned 9 months after they had installed charging stations. They found that EV drivers spent more than the average customer spent, or which 4 times more than the average customer, and realized revenue increase by almost $56,000 in the 9-month period. Spend some time on how to make the business case for organizations that are interested in EV charging but are budget constrained, like universities and municipalities. With smart charging stations, you can set usage fees, and many of our customers set their pricing to break even on the investments, which can easily be done without charging too expensive for EV drivers. So pricing stations to make them a revenue source. This is something we don't recommend in general because we see EV charging as something that adds value to the organization or your business and not a direct revenue source. That said, we do see that happen in certain circumstances where there is very high utilization that makes it in circumstances. So there are also plenty of grants and incentives available that can help you move the project forward. Documented grants and incentives on our webpage at www.chargepoint.com/incentives. You can click on your state to see what incentives are available in your state. We keep this page up to date. is a really good resource for those interested in EV charging but are looking for some kind of a financial assistance. Now, some data from our cloud software as well. The town in the Bay Area that is not a big city like San Francisco. It's a town that doesn't have parking meters or ticketing officials, paid parking. They have very limited parking spaces. They put in EV charging because a grant was available, and they wanted to create a green image. The original intent was never to make revenue. However, they knew that stations brought in significant revenue. In the year 2015, they earned over $26,000 from their 8 stations, an average of $3,200 per station. The highest earning station brought in almost $8,000 of revenue, which basically makes the payback period in less than a year. This is, again, data from a top 5 university. Right? Universities are also budget constrained. They wanted to put in charging stations to, again, build a green image. To their surprise, stations were bringing in significant revenue. They saw a total of $38,000 revenue across their 14 stations in the year 2015, with an average revenue of over $2,600 per station. The highest revenue station brought in almost $6,000 last year for them. To note, in the case of making charging stations a source of revenue, that we, one word of caution here is that we don't recommend setting very high prices because that then deters EV drivers from using the stations because it makes it then more than gas vehicles. Something to be about. Moving to sustainability, which is emerging as a key business goal for many of the organizations that we're in conversations with. Transportation is an important source of greenhouse gas emissions. Passenger vehicles account for nearly 2% of U.S. emissions. Yet, with the exception of companies with big fleets, many companies tend to focus on sustainability within the walls of the buildings. And over the course of a year, 100 employees or customers driving to your business actually creates 3.5 buildings worth of carbon dioxide emissions. So it can help you reduce your greenhouse gas emissions significantly, and is as important as sustainability focused on your buildings and other factors. And ChargePoint customers are leading the way. We found that 4 in 10 of the CDP Climate A list of companies are ChargePoint customers. 7 in 10 of the Forbes most green companies in the U.S. are ChargePoint customers. And 8 in 10 of the U.S. EPA's top green power partners are also ChargePoint customers. So trying to make the business case for EV charging, a good approach would be to identify other champions and stakeholders within the organization and make them your friends. EV charging benefits many different departments within the organization. Often budget is sourced from these departments, multiple departments, so get your other teams involved in the process. Also, make sure that it is weaved into different teams' strategy. For example, listing EV charging as a benefit on your HR portal, making it part of the sustainability initiatives, and including it in the transportation and commuter programs. So the EV driving executive can be your best friend within the organization, so would be a great starting point. Looking to partner with other internal stakeholders. It helps them conveniently charge at work, then commute in the vehicle of their choice. So they're going to be very enthusiastic champions within the organization. You involve your friends from human resources. As I mentioned before, it helps attract and retain top talent and helps them build a competitive benefits package. It would also be a good idea to involve your marketing and branding teams because putting EV charging stations on it also a very visible testimony of your commitment to sustainability. It's a visible branding thing for your brand. It helps you build a green and socially responsible brand. It also helps promote the business to EV drivers, offering visibility to your business. Themes, as I mentioned before, EV charging can help attract new customers and build loyalty and repeat business, thereby helping your top line. So that is something sales is always interested in. Make sure that you involve them in the conversations. Sustainability is another very enthusiastic partner when it comes to EV charging. EV charging helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It helps establish green leadership. And it's also one of those sustainability initiatives that actually engages your community, your employees, your customers, and your tenants. Demonstrate leadership by visible amenity. As far as the finance department is concerned, the pricing capability can enable you to get a quick payback. It also can be an source of revenue in some circumstances, as I mentioned, which is one of the key players when it comes to budget, especially. It helps them address the growing need for EV charging in a hassle-free manner. So ChargePoint Help. Right? ChargePoint can help you with your EV charging needs. We're the only provider with a complete EV charging solution across home, work, around town, out of town, and for a single use case across multiple verticals. We have the largest and the broadest customer base with more than 27,000 charging spots across 5,200 businesses. Here's a list of what we offer as part of our cloud offer and show service plan. This is not a comprehensive list, but do a flavor for the important things that we offer. We make it complete hassle-free for you with 24/7 driver support. So when your drivers are having issues with their account or have trouble charging, you don't have to get involved. They can call a 1-800 number and our support people will help them with a few seconds. We manage payments, and we can set up and manage pricing and access control for you so you don't have to do it. We have a rich set of features that make it turnkey and customizable to suit your specific needs, whatever your use case is. Our stations can be custom branded, and they also have a video screen to promote your brand. Our software makes it easy in any scenario, be it a single tenant or a multi-tenant setup, or fleet or workplace, retail, hospitality, whatever your use case is. We offer a full range of charging stations for all your needs, across public charging, private charging, etc. We have smart connected network chargers with award-winning industry design and cord management. So with that, we come to the end of the first section. For those that joined late, we are recording today's webinar, and we'll send you a link to the recording as well as a presentation in a follow-up email. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A bar. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Tom Moloughney. Over to you, Tom.
Saranya. So earlier on, Saranya told you a little bit about me and the fact that I own and manage property in Montclair, and I have charging stations on the site. So a little background how I came to that. Back in 2009, I was involved in a pilot program to drive an electric car. It was a converted Mini Cooper that BMW made, and the project was the Mini E Tri-Lease program. And BMW basically converted about 600 electric Mini Coopers and had people driving them in New Jersey, New York, and California. There were about 200 of them in my area here in New Jersey, and I was one of the lucky people chosen to be in that program. Along with being in the program, they installed a home charging station in our garage, but basically we were on about a 100-mile leash because there was really no public charging available in 2009. It was, you had about 100 miles and then you had to make it home. So shortly after we had the program, I installed a charging station at my restaurant in Montclair. I just thought it would be good to extend my range. I'd be able to use it when I got to work, plug in, charge. Maybe I could do some more driving before I had to go home. But one of the interesting things that I found was a lot of other people in this program started asking me if they could come and plug into my charging station at the restaurant during the day, and they could kind of refill and extend their own range. So of course I obliged. And the things I noticed was they were coming, plugging in, and staying for an hour or two and spending money at my restaurant, which is something that I hadn't really thought of. I just thought I was helping them out and letting them plug in. So that was interesting to me. It was my first real taste of seeing that public charging can be very beneficial for the business that has it on site. Now, of course, this was back in 2009. Landscape's changed tremendously in the electric vehicle industry now. And there's almost, by the end of the year, there'll be 500,000 electric vehicles on the streets here in the U.S. So the demand for public charging is way more than it was back then. So in a couple of years later, I decided to install public charging stations that were networked, that I could control on the property. And at that time, I chose ChargePoint and actually one of their competitors. I installed one from each company. I just wanted to see which ones were better, which ones had better features, who had better customer service. I really know at that point, who would be the better partner to deal with. So after about a year, I realized that the ChargePoint's equipment was so much more robust, and their customer service was so much better that I got rid of the other charging station and installed my second ChargePoint station. So a little bit about who I am and where I'm coming from. Let's go to the slides that I have presented for you here today. So first, should I consider EV charging for my commercial property? That's kind of an overview of what we're doing today. First, do I need to offer EV charging? Is this just a luxury, or do I need to do it? I like to think that forward-thinking property owners that own commercial, retail businesses and apartment complexes, they don't wait until they need to do something to do it. That's almost playing defensive. Now is the time to install public charging on your commercial property. If forward-thinking owners and property managers understand, they're doing it now. They're going to benefit from understanding where the market is going. Until your competition has them installed first. Be the leader, have that competitive edge, and you'll prosper. The same with all the other aspects of how you run your business. The adoption is continuing to rise. Major OEMs today either have plug-in cars for sale, or they have them in their pipeline and they'll be for sale within another year or two. So that 500,000 or so plug-in cars that are going to be on the roads by the end of 2016 here in the U.S. is going to be millions in only a few short years. So open your doors to the customers. People are going to need places to plug in, and you don't provide it on your property, they're going to go to properties that do. Strict regulations on emissions are forcing manufacturers to make plug-in cars, whether they want to or not. Some of the manufacturers are all in and totally on board with it. Some of them aren't really sure, but it doesn't matter. They have to make them if they want to sell their other cars. So this plug-in car evolution that we're seeing right now isn't a short-lived fad. It's here to stay, and it's only going to grow. One of the things I like to say that Saranya mentioned before is how EV owners are loyal to the plug. This is extremely true. If an electric vehicle owner has an opportunity to plug in at a destination they need to go to, be a movie theater, a restaurant, a shopping mall, a coffee house, whatever it is. If they have an opportunity to plug their car in, they will, even if it doesn't necessarily need to be charged. And if your competitor offers e-charging and they're down the road from you, they're going to go to that business. They might even like your goods and services better, but they're going to go to your competition because they're plugging their car in. It's just absolutely a fact. This has been proven time over. You know, customers, e-drivers, patronize businesses that offer EV charging. So you should be the one that offers it first before your competition. So how much will this cost me? And there's so many factors that influence the cost of charging, infrastructure on your property. It's really not possible to throw out a number. You know, it could be a few $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how many you want to install, where you want to install them on your property. Like, for instance, when I did my installation, I found a way that I could dig for the conduit in a flower bed, so I only had to dig through dirt and mulch and replace a couple shrubs. So that dramatically decreased the cost of my installation, as opposed to if I had to cut through concrete or, through asphalt to bring the conduit to the station. And also what type of equipment that you need. You're going to have regular level 2 charging stations or DC fast charge stations. It all depends on where your property is and what the needs are of that specific property. So it's really not possible to say how much it's going to cost. Your contact ChargePoint, your ChargePoint rep will work with you about your particular property and the needs there and come up with a workable solution. So decided that you want to have EV charging on your property. The question is, where do I put them? What many people make the mistake is they put them in the prime parking spaces in their parking lot, meaning the ones closest to, the front door of an establishment, or the closest to where somebody would generally want to park to get a shopping cart or to access the property. But what it does is, those prime parking spaces, people that don't need to charge or don't even have an electric car will park there, even if the signs say, parking for electric vehicles only because you have charging stations. And you have to have a problem where you have to kind of police those parking spaces and make sure that's available for the electric car owners. So I always recommend don't call them in prime parking spaces. Electric car owners don't mind walking a little bit to get to the front door of the business, as long as they know that they're going to have a place to plug their car in. And the further you park it away from you install these stations from the best locations on the property, better, because the least likely to have somebody who doesn't need to charge park there. Now, a lot of parking lots, parking is you don't have even enough for what you need as it is. So, you have to kind of manage and figure out where's the best place to put them. But you have to consider where the electric supply is coming from. Because the further you have to take the electric supply from the supply to the charging station, obviously the more it's going to cost. So that's also a consideration. And one last thing I like to remind people, which is sometimes overlooked, if you're in a cold weather region, you have to consider snow plowing and where you pile up the mounds of snow. You can't install a charging station on a little island in the middle of your parking lot if you know that's where you need to pile 10 feet of snow, when you big snowstorm, because you can't, put these things under snow. I mean, number one, they'll break. Number two, they won't be accessible to the customers if they're piled under, 1,000 pounds of snow and ice. So that's one thing that I like to point out. And also, mention it to your snow plow contractor that, look, these are new. I've just installed these charging stations. You can't plow the snow right up to them. You've got to figure out a way that you can push it around them. As long as they know that, they can do that. I don't have a problem in our parking lot. Just kind of plow the snow in a different direction so it's not all piled up on the charging station. Okay, so what level of charging best suits my property's needs? One of the biggest questions is, where's the property located? You're close to major thoroughfares, or are you deep within a city? Because that's going to affect coming to charge on your property. If it's right near a major thoroughfare, within a few miles, somebody can get off an exit and be right on your property, you might want to consider DC fast charge, or at least have a combination of level 2 and DC fast. Because with DC fast, that suits long distance travel. It can recharge the cars, up to between 80 and 100%. Somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes, most electric cars today. That enables long distance travel. So what you'll do, you'll get people that are making these long distance travels, of hundreds of miles, that you just really need a place where they can DC fast charge. And now you've got them on your property for an hour, selling them your goods and services. So that's what I would recommend if you're very close to a major thoroughfare. If not, if you're deep within a city, you may be just fine with level 2 charging stations, because, for the most part, if you're in the middle of a city, you're not going to encounter people that need to recharge fully quickly, within an hour fully recharge the battery. So, most of the time, city charging level 2 is usually adequate. Or if you had a few level 2 charging stations and then you wanted to put in one D-fast, that would be great also. So the other question is, who are the retail tenants on your property? If this is a retail property, are they quick serve restaurants and coffee houses where people only stay 15 to 30 minutes? Are they medium length restaurant businesses like formal restaurants, movie theaters, shopping malls? These are the kind of places where people stay between 1 and 3 or 4 hours. Or they are extended stay locations, hotels where people stay overnight, country clubs where people spend the whole day there, major sporting venues where people are there for 4 or 5 hours. All those things play into exactly which charging needs you have on this property. The quick serve restaurants and coffee houses, level 2 doesn't serve them too well because it takes too long to charge the car. In about a half an hour that the average customer stays there, they're only going to add about 10 miles of range, 10 to 15 miles of range to their car. It's not going to really satisfy the needs of most people looking to plan and add some miles. So at these type of establishments, I really recommend DC fast charge. Medium length stay places where customers are there 1 to 3 or 4 hours. Maybe a combination. Level 2 is usually satisfactory, but if you think it's an area that is going to get a high volume of traffic, maybe one DC fast and a couple level 2 stations would be fine. Extended stay locations don't really need DC fast charge because the customers are there long enough that they really, level 2 charging will pretty much fully replenish their car. See, I'm in the middle. My commercial property has a 24-hour convenience store and also a restaurant. So I have a blend of DC fast and level 2, and it should be working really well for me. Return on investment. One of the first questions people ask. It's not always easily quantifiable, I'll be honest with you. It's very difficult to make money selling electricity. Anya showed you a few case studies before where that was the case, and the stations had very high utilization, and properties were able to pretty much recoup all the money to install the stations within the first year, which is fantastic. That's not always going to happen. So what I like to talk about is the added value that charging station brings to the business on the site. I think that's really where you have to look in most instances, and that's where I look. What it's done for me is how it's brought so many more people to my restaurant and my property that would have never come before, that didn't even know I existed, but they found me on the ChargePoint app. And you know what? They were in the area, they needed to plug in for a little while. And it's possible that I have a customer that's going to keep coming back. I've had plenty of people that have come on long journeys of hundreds of miles, and, you know, plugged in, stayed for a long time and eaten, had appetizers, main courses, desserts, because they needed to charge. I kind of had a captured customer for a few hours. And I mean, this has been dozens and dozens of people. I've actually kept some on this, and you know, what I found is that the people that have been coming to the restaurant with EVs and plugging in are staying longer and spending more money, you know, as much as 30% more money, which is pretty substantial. They're ordering things like appetizers and desserts, maybe because they know they need to stay an extra 15 or 20 minutes to get the charge that they want. So, you know, they don't want to just sit there, so they'll order a piece of cake or a cappuccino and a cannoli or something like that when they're done eating, when they would have normally got up and left. Now that alone, you know, a cappuccino and a cannoli is $8 or $9. So the money I made on just that dessert that I maybe wouldn't have gotten before more than covered what it cost me to let them plug in. You know, that's how I make the business case for it, as the additional value, and it definitely works. It's, you know, to me, it's an amenity. It's kind of like offering free Wi-Fi. You know, businesses offer that just to be competitive, and basically because a lot of other businesses offer, they don't want to be the business that doesn't offer it. Well, this is what's happening with EV charging now. These charging stations are proliferating. People are looking for businesses that have them, and they won't go to the businesses that don't have them if there's other businesses in the area that do. So, you know, it's something that I think really needs to be looked into, and looked into hard right now for property owners and managers and apartment complexes. I had somebody who was moving in the area, who wanted to move into the area, but none of the apartment complexes near my restaurant had charging. And he came and asked me, he said, look, if I rent this apartment, will come here and charge. So, you know, there's one instance right there where, I mean, if there was any apartment complex in my town that had public charging, he would have rented there. Even if he didn't really necessarily like that apartment, he would have rented it just because it has a plug. So this is what we're seeing there out right now. There's a pool of people that want to plug in their car, and you know, you need to capture this customer, and you can simply by being one of the first people in your area that offer public charging. What network should I choose? You've decided you want to get a public charging. So where do I go? Well, ChargePoint is the largest EV charge network in the world. Their equipment is, in my opinion, the best out there. So far that I've seen, it's the best out there. And they do offer great customer service. I can tell you that firsthand. You know, for the last 4 years that I've had my public ChargePoint network, since whenever I've had any kind of issue or where I needed customer service, I had an immediate response. It wasn't the case with the other company that I was dealing with, which is why I had the station removed and a second ChargePoint station installed. And one of the things I want to point out that's really important is cable management is available on all the equipment offered ChargePoint. And that's something that you might not realize is important until you have a charging station, or until it's too late and you don't have cable management. Cable management is like a retractable cable that when you're done charging, it recoils the cable back up into the charging station. And stations that don't have cable management, they have these big, long 15-foot cables, which is, you know, the average length of a cable. And the customer has to kind of loop it around a hook or something and recoil it when they're done charging. But people are lazy. They do it. They charge their car, and then they just put the connector back on the charging station, and they leave the cable all tangled up on the ground, and it becomes a tripping hazard. It could be an insurance problem for you. But one thing that's even worse than that I found is in the cold weather climates, like I mentioned before with snow plowing. If somebody doesn't loop people back up on the charging station and it's laying across the ground and it snows and your snowplow company comes, it just rips cable off the main, and then you've got an incredibly expensive repair. They got to fix the station, put a new cable on it. Besides the fact that now your station's out of service until you get it fixed. So what you do, make sure, my recommendation is any charging station you ever install on your commercial property, make sure it has proper cable management where the cable doesn't drape on the ground and get dirty and is left uncoiled, because it's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and it's also an issue where the station is going to get damaged by somebody running over it or a snowplow ripping it off. And with ChargePoint, you control the pricing, you control the availability of the station, and the rules of use. They have a really good portal set up where you can go in there and change the pricing based on the time of day, when the station's available. You have it tiered so that the first couple hours they pay a certain amount, but then they pay more the longer they stay, so that you're trying to inspire turnover. There's an infinite number of ways you can configure the station, which is really good, and it's really easy inside the ChargePoint portal. And if you can't figure it out, they have representatives that will get right online with you and do it with you, so that you're set up right. You can even set it up so that you can have a certain group of cards that are free. So like me on my charging stations on my property, I'm not paying to charge. My card, when I swipe it, it's free. And you could have a house account set up with like a house ChargePoint card. So if a customer's coming and spending money in your business, you can take that card and swipe it and let it charge for free. So they give you a lot of different ways that you can make sure the station is set up to suit your needs best. So, with that, I'm going to turn it back to Saranya, and I want to thank everybody for coming here today to listen to the webinar.
Thank you so much. That was very informational. I really liked your Wi-Fi analogy. I was just thinking, if there was an app that would show me all the businesses that have Wi-Fi and the ones that don't, I would never go to the ones that don't have the Wi-Fi. So thank you for that. For those who joined late, we are recording this webinar. Send you the link to the recording as well as a presentation and follow-up emails. Before we open it up for Q&A, I just want to quickly mention that last year, December, the United Nations honored ChargePoint with a Momentum for Change Award at COP21 in Paris. Here's a video that features our customer, Google, who was a big part of this event as well. So that will open up for a bit of Q&A, so please go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A bar. So the first question is for you, Tom. How do I know how many charging stations I should install on my property?
Good question. Well, it really depends on how big your property is, where you're located. I always like to tell people to future-proof property. Regardless of how many you decide to install now, let's say you only decided to install one or two now, or two or three. While you're preparing the site to have these charging stations by installing, if you need to dig up to put conduit in, or if you're you're repaving the parking lot and you think now's a good time to put in the charging stations, while you have that exposed, always add extra conduit to where you could possibly install future charging stations, because you're going to need more. However many you need now, 4 or 5 years, you're going to need more, because as electric vehicles proliferate, when the 500,000 that's going to be on the road this year turns into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 million cars, then it's gonna make a lot of sense to install more. So while you're doing the work now, while you're trenching, while you're bringing electric to the site, I highly recommend you a couple more big conduits so that you can definitely add a few more charging stations in the future.
The question is, we recently installed level 2 chargers to rent in a public parking lot. I'd like to know how to price the system. I'm considering $1 for the first 3 hours and $1.50 after that. What's in it?
Well, the way I see it is, as I mentioned in today's webinar, I look at the additional services that as really being the big moneymaker for me on the site. So what I'm looking to do and what I do is I have the station set pretty much at what the electric cost is for me, which is from level 2 station to $1.50 an hour. So, you know, I have it set so that I pretty much break even with the electric, and the profit that I really make is off of the additional services that I get. But that really depends. It depends on what are the other charging stations in your area charging. You don't want to be really higher, or at least much higher than what the other stations are charging, because people won't come to your site. If you price yourself really out of the market, then the whole point of installing the charging stations really is moot, because people aren't going to use them. So I'd recommend you charge about what it costs you for the electric. I think that the sites will be utilized and everybody will be happy.
The next question is, what maintenance do these things require?
Well, in a sentence, very little. You know, I've had my stations for a few years now, and you know, had one small incident where there was a vandalism, where they broke a piece of plastic and ChargePoint shipped me out a new piece, and I actually put it on myself. But other than that, they required absolutely no maintenance. You know, in a while, if I had a glitch in one of them, I would just reset the circuit breaker and it would restart it, and then that was it. But other than that, they really don't require much maintenance or any maintenance as far as I'm concerned.
The question is, can I offer free charging to the customers that patronize my business, but charge a fee to those that don't?
Oh, that's great, and that's actually, I touched upon that on my last slide a little bit. One thing that you can do with ChargePoint, which is really neat, is you can assign, you can set up groups within your portal where certain groups pay different amounts. So I have a group set up that I'm a member of that's free charging, and my card is registered in this group. So when my ChargePoint card activates one of my stations, it's free, but the public pays the regular rate that I charge. So yeah, you can have that set up really easily. You can do it in 5 minutes by yourself. Thanks.
We are coming to the close hour, so we'll take one last question. The question is, can charging stations be used while it's raining?
Oh, question, and that's something a lot of people ask. Yeah, they absolutely can. You can charge in the rain, in the snow, in hail. They're very safe, these charging stations. They have, triple redundancy built into them, where there's no chance that anybody is going to get shocked or hurt, or the car is going to get damaged. The way the connector and the charge ports are designed, water doesn't get in there when they're charging. I mean, I've seen people charge during blizzards where they left their car plugged in overnight, and the next day their car just looked like a big mound of snow, and they had to dust it all off. So it's completely fine. Rain, snow, sleet, whatever. There's no issue at all.
Appreciate all your responses. For more information, please go to our website at www.chargepoint.com. We have a series of upcoming educational webinars. Please follow our LinkedIn page to get announcements. You can also follow us on Twitter at ChargePointBiz if you're a station owner or a potential station owner. If
you are a driver, please follow us at ChargePoint.net and our Facebook page. If there were questions we could not address today, please email us at webinars@chargepoint.com and we'll answer your questions. With that, we come to the end of today's session. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to attend our webinar. It was a great pleasure to have you. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.